Welcome everybody. Welcome to Sacred Ground Community Church in Sangha. This is our Wild Church service. We're experimenting with lavalier mics today. Thank you to Stacy and Mark from Pittsburgh for getting those for us. And we want to make sure they're working. So if you are tuned in, please let us know right away if you're able to hear or not hear, if you're able to hear the bell or not. We'll do the best we can.
I think we have a comment right now, so I'm gonna.
Okay. I'm Michael. We're Sacred Ground. We've been around in various forms since 2009. If you're checking us out for the first time, we're a melding of East and West. Buddhist, Christian, Mother Earth teachings, and this is one of our Wild Church services. And we begin the services, usually, with inviting the bell to sound. And I will do that right now. And as I invite the bell to sound, we're all invited, and you're invited, to simply enjoy the sound of the bells in this way. And the sound of the birds. Invite us into a few in and out breaths. Just working on the tech right before we start the service, and that happens a lot. And it's always like been a little challenge for me to kind of get centered. So I'll work at it. Not too hard, but I'll work at it. It's in the high 30s here. It's actually beautiful. I hope I wasn't too discouraging on the email saying it was going to be cold. It is a little chilly, but it's beautiful out here. I invite you to, if you're here, I invite you to notice that breeze. Everyone at home, I invite you to notice the in-breath. The birds. And on that out breath, I invite you to just let those shoulders drop a little bit. Let gravity do its thing. In, where, out. Release. I invite you to make that, to have that in-breath go all the way down. Imagine it going all the way down into your hips. Breathing in. Hold. And a nice, long, slow release. In. Where. Release. This time I invite you to just notice where the tension is. Maybe there's a little tightness, a little stiffness in your calves, maybe in your hips, maybe in your neck. I'm noticing it in my upper back, what I call my wings. And let's just bring a little awareness to that area where there might be some gripping, some holding. In, where, out. Begin to relax. Here we might remind ourselves we're largely made of water, and just imagine that water spreading, that place where it's being held in kind of a tight container around that shoulder or those neck muscles, and just letting that water just kind of nicely spread out. In, where, out, release.
So they're having a hard time hearing us still. So I don't know if these are working or not. We'll try it without. We'll try with pulling this out and just see. But I think we need to speak up regardless.
Okay.
Okay? I just think we need to speak up.
So I'll try to speak a little louder. You can also let us know if that's better, worse, the same. And I will share with you our theme today. We're in the third Sunday of Lent. And what we're doing with Lent today is we're taking Lent and looking at it as a time for healing. Last 2 weeks we focused on Sabbath as healing, we focused on silence as healing, and today our theme is self-containment as healing. And I draw particularly from a phrase, I forgot the book, there's a book called Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, and drawing from that, I'm going to share with you a little adapted phrase from that. The spiritual warrior is self-contained, with no need for external reference points to confirm themselves. This is one I've devoted to memory, and I say to myself quite a bit. Welcome. And I'll share it again. This is from Shambhala. The spiritual warrior is self-contained with no need for external reference points to confirm themselves. And I invite you to consider this in terms of healing. So do a little call and response, and everything is invitational. You don't have to respond, you can just sit there. But and we'll have this call and response after each of the readings too. So self-contained, with no need for external reference points.
With no need for external reference points.
To confirm oneself.
To confirm oneself.
And you think of it as a mantra. And one of the best phrases, one of the best phrases that I've ever heard to describe mantra is that which protects the mind from itself. So, I will pass it on. I will pass it on to Ollie.
So the comment here is Ollie's loud, Michael's soft, because I was close to the camera. I was close to over there. So we still need to be louder.
We'll just, so if you're doing one of the readings, try to read loud. We'll have a sharing time where you don't need to be on camera, but if you want to be heard, we try to speak up. We do the best we can.
We do the best we can.
Oh, I found too, if you're watching at home, sometimes when something's kind of soft, if you have headphones, put the headphones on, I can oftentimes hear better. So, all right.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best, and we're fairly low budget, so we'll see if we can talk to our audio and tech people and see what's happening with us. All right.
And a little technologically challenged, as if you've watched us for years, you know.
So why don't we?
So we'll do the bell and all.
Well, you're
okay.
Getting us centered, I guess. We need it.
We need it. So beautiful. Inside of here, Michael burnt ash for Ash Wednesday, and when you ring the bell, it moves. It was like vibrating with it. So ash in there, so lovely. Well, so nice to see you. Nice to see you. And welcome people that are joining us online. I will try to be loud. I want to mention to people that are joining us online that you can comment in the live chat. We will try to see it. Might see it, might not. But we appreciate your comments and appreciate you joining us also. So I just want to spend a few moments in silence. And one of the things you really can hear YouTube, which we can hear now, is the birds and just the beautiful sounds around us. So you could just get yourself in a place of stability. So however you're sitting, we're sitting in these funny camp chairs. It's a little hard, but however you're sitting, feel stable. Notice your feet, notice your spine. If you can or you want to, you can shut your eyes or just lower your gaze. Notice where your hands are. You could put them down on your knees. You could, in a grounding position, you might have them up in a receiving position. You could have them clasped. So just notice where they are, your hands and your feet. Notice your chest opening a little bit. Notice your breathing again. So important. And then just notice around you. Notice the feel of the air around you, whether you're here outside, we have crisp spring air. Just the air in the room that you're in. Notice the sounds that are around you. As much as you can, just attune to that for a few minutes. And like I said, if you want your eyes closed, we'll just sit in silence together. You to keep your eyes closed for a minute longer. Noticing again the quality of the air around you. We're feeling a slight breeze right here. It's going to lead us in a short prayer, and after that I invite you just to open your eyes with fresh eyes. And we do this a bit here. And just see what happens. Great sacred, great mystery. We express our gratitude here this day. Right now, today on this Sunday morning. We acknowledge the suffering in ourselves and the suffering around us. Also acknowledge the joy in ourselves and the joy around us. We give thanks for our lives, for this earth, for many opportunities to practice and to become more alive. We give appreciation for this park that we're in, ancestors, the land ancestors that lived here before us. Give thanks for the birds and the trees and the sun and the seasons. Peace and amen. Invite you slowly open your eyes.
So, oh, thank you. As Ollie acknowledged the ancestors here with us, land ancestors like the Shawnee, the Miami, the Hopewell, the Abenaki, spiritual ancestors like Leo Tolstoy, who I'll be mentioning, and Thich Nhat Hanh, and whatever spiritual ancestors we bring with us, and our blood ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, teachers, artists, some of our step families, extended families, and then blood ancestors who are also all part of us with all of their problems and all of their goodnesses. And as guests here in this park, we like to take a moment to just acknowledge some bit of what's around us, whether it's a tree or a stone or the top of an acorn shell, or maybe a feeling of like feeling the presence of the ancestor, of a particular ancestor or something. So we are going to be invited to bow in to acknowledge an ancestor, and then the we usually have a little phrase with it, and the one I'll go with today is, we recognize the holy as present. We recognize the holy as present. So,
And everything's invitational.
everything's invitational. Yeah, nothing, anybody. Feel free to just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to just take this in. I don't know what I think, That's fine. That's fine. Just, again, we say it often here, but like, I'm looking at these trees and I'm thinking, we weren't around at the time of the dinosaurs, but most of the dinosaurs were much smaller than these living, breathing beings that are with us. And so I say to you, trees, we recognize the holy as present. I'm just going to say it again. It's kind of crazy, right? These living beings. So anybody's welcome to bow in.
Shannon bowing in. I would like to acknowledge all the women who too often are never acknowledged in history, and that includes all the women who worked with Thich Nhat Hanh, and yet it is Thich Nhat Hanh that is acknowledged here week after week. And he was not alone. There was a group of 12, I think, nuns and monks, many more hundred, including the former nun of Thais, who was a nun for 15 years and is absolutely awesome today, Kyra Jolingo. And that's just the start. All you have to do is inquire. And there are women and men, they and them, who are today doing that great work. And I don't remember what we're supposed to say.
Well, not supposed to, but you're
How
welcome.
about we honor the sacred in you?
Okay.
There you go. That's
I know that one.
I know, that's the one I know. Ollie bowing in. Just hearing the cheers of laughter. I don't know what's going on in the rest of the park. I see little kids over there. There's a playground right that way. And a number of people out here on this cold, March day out here in the park, and that always makes me so joyful to see people out using the park. So for all those people that are outside here at Sharon Woods, we recognize the holy as present.
Zeus bowing. It's really a nice contrast. Right behind us is a oak tree that has still quite a bit of its leaves on from last year, and right next to it, the 2 trees over, is one that has none but the buds coming out for the new leaves for the spring. So to me, it's a contrast of and a joining of that which is being surrendered and that which is coming too. And it kind of reminds me of elders in the community passing on wisdom and retaining that wisdom, until the time that it comes to leave, literally, in order to support the buds. Because if you know that these leaves, as they do drop, and some of them have, they become the soil. And that soil, much along the lines of Thich Nhat Hanh and other naturalists, become the elements that provide the nutrients for the buds to come up in the tree right next to it. So I'm inspired and reassured, along with the theme today about containment, that we all are, that we don't need an external reference point. We all are part of this unity, and it's important, I think, to honor it. So we honor the holy as present.
And then I have a couple people on. People have added some comments. Love the concert of birds in the background too. Beautiful bird sounds in the park this morning. Thank you for the silence. And hello, good morning from the cookie table capital, Y-Town. So we've got those comments. Thank you.
To all this holy and sacred that surrounds us here, that surrounds each of you, we bow in gratitude. And now we're going to take a moment to offer our honoring of each other and the sacred, the holy in each other. And so with that, I often say, or almost always say probably, we're invited to feel it in ourselves, and then that enables us, or it helps us, or facilitates seeing it in the other. So we'll do that to each other here. Anybody who doesn't want to be on camera, just avoid being over here. And anybody who wants to bow to the folks there, in their homes or wherever you may be, you can come over here. And those of you at home, I invite you to bow in, and just with the idea that that bow is going in and reverberating out. So maybe from near Youngstown, Ohio, on that cookie table, it's reverberating out and going to Texas or St. Louis or Pittsburgh or wherever, and vice versa, and us as well. So we'll invite the bell to sound, and we'll offer our bows of gratitude to each other, for each other. Enjoy the sound of the plane. Best wishes to those in their travels. Enjoy the sound of the bell. So this first reading it comes from the Gospel of Matthew, and usually this part is kind of glossed over. This is the precursor to the story of Jesus walking out to the boat on the water. Today, however, we're going to focus exclusively on that pre-story. And the invitation is to notice the text emphasis on both his choice of solitude and his propensity to be self-contained without any need for external reference point to confirm himself. I'll invite the bell to sound, and then Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 24. Immediately, Jesus had the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side, while he himself dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there, alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them.
That's what I was waiting for.
I forgot. We're gonna, again, everything invite. If you'd like to do, we're gonna offer the mantra as call and response if you wish. Self-contained, self-contained, with no need for external reference points.
With no need for external reference points.
To confirm oneself.
To confirm oneself. So we have a second reading from the Bible today. Here we read how Jesus and his disciples are self-contained with no need for external reference points to confirm themselves. The reading is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2, verses 23 through 27. On Sabbath, Jesus and his disciples were going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are you doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And Jesus said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food, how he entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and he gave some to his companions?" Then he said to them, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, not humankind for the Sabbath." And the invitational call and response: self-contained,
Self-contained,
with no need for external reference points
with no need for external reference points
to confirm oneself.
to confirm oneself.
So before we do the next readings, we're going to have a moment here for joys and concerns and prayers, so that we can lift up any of those concerns are going to lay on our hearts for all of us. So I'll mention a few, but know that most of our joys and concerns will be here, and that's an important place for them to be too. And we'll acknowledge that. So if you want to share a joy and concern, you do it online. I'll look to see what's been shared. If you want to do it here, bow in, share some right now. So if we all could just get in a state, a prayerful state. Just beautiful park. Makes it a little bit easier.
Shannon bowing in. I have a really big joy. This past week was my first week. I started volunteering with a local organization, for those who are not here, called CRIS, Community, Refugee, and Immigration Services. And I'm helping with English as a second language for refugees and immigrants, senior citizens. I specifically wanted to do that. So the group meets at a local library, and because of all the mayhem the federal government is doing, they told me up front they're winging it. A lot of their funding has gone. They've laid off staff because of it, so I was cool with that. I was being open to that, and I was told that most if not all of the folks were going to be from the Congo, and most of them are. And so Monday was my first day. I worked pretty much exclusively with helping my new Congo friends. And then Friday, there's a woman that I met briefly on Monday who's from the Dominican Republic, and she's an immigrant. She's been here for a while. And it was obvious to all of us that she was not from the Congo, just like I'm not from the Congo. So it turns out, when I asked her where she's from, she said the Dominican Republic. I said, "Que bueno," and her whole face lit up because I could speak Spanish, not fluently, but I had told the staff that I had spent 20 months in Spanish immersion classes here recently, and really, if it's possible, would love to use it. So, woo! I spent an hour and a half with my new friend from the Dominican Republic, helping her for her citizenship test, and it was all awesome. And I look forward to tomorrow. Again, I don't know who will be there. I don't know what they'll ask me to do, and I just love it. I love it. Thank y'all for listening. Shannon bowing out.
I'm just going to bow in to read one of the comments because it's directed to Shannon here. It says, I think Christiana, thank you for acknowledging all who are a part of the lineage of Thich Nhat Hanh. So that's from Christiana. And looks like we have another one. Stacy says, joy for park enjoyment with sounds of cheering, joy with spring bird songs, planes, trains, and automobiles, and prayers from a beautiful group of deeper thinking and caring tribe. To what is that? The big hole in our heart right now. One of our little kitties. We have 3 kittens and one. They're indoor outdoor, which I know is controversial, but no need for external reference points. But they, one of them didn't come home like Wednesday, and she probably is the least scrappy of them, and it's never happened before. So, and we've had her for 3 years. So, to Joan, Didion, Kitty, wherever she is, we're hoping living at the university, one of the university students, maybe she lost her collar and they took her in. But we have signs, we've listed her with all the online places we can, and so to Joan's spirit, whether it's still here or elsewhere, and or wherever she is, she's a big part of our hearts. So to Joan Didion and all the people in our family who love her so much. Spoken and unspoken. We lift them up and we unite with people all over the world right now who are sending out their prayers. And we believe that these add to the good, add to healing and hopefulness, peace and amen. It is. I've been moving. Yeah, because I can just turn it.
Okay.
And so that's. I think it's working. And people can talk about or online. Let us know if we need to keep. And we need to keep talking out.
Right.
But let us know if it's a problem.
So, I think you won't need to move. We'll start with Shannon and then Zeus and then Ollie with the reading. Right? If that's okay.
And so I'll move it.
Yeah, and if you want to do the call and response, if you don't feel comfortable doing the call and response, Ollie or I could lead that, but if you're comfortable with it, that's great.
Reading from Thich Nhat Hanh's Silence, the Power of Quiet in a World Full of Noise, page 147 and 151. Our true home is what the Buddha called the island of self, the peaceful place inside of us. Oftentimes we don't notice it's there. We don't even really know where we are, because our outer or inner environment is filled with noise. We need some quietness to find that island of self. When people hear the phrase, the island of self, they often think it means they have to live alone and have to shut people and everything else out of their lives. But this practice, this kind of living alone, does not mean there's no one around you. It only means that you are established firmly in the here and the now. You are aware of everything that is happening in the present moment. You use your mindfulness to become aware of everything, of every feeling, every perception in yourself, as well as what's happening around you in your community. You are always with yourself. You do not lose yourself. That is the deeper way of living a life of solitude.
Self-contained,
self-contained,
no need for external reference point
no need for external reference points
to confirm oneself.
to confirm oneself.
And Thich Nhat Hanh silence, 151 and 152. To practice solitude is to practice being in this singular moment, not caught in the past, not carried away by the future, and most of all, not carried away by the crowd. You don't have to go to the forest. You can live with people. You can go to the grocery store. You can walk with others, and you can still enjoy silence and solitude. In today's society, with so many things around you, clamoring for your attention and your reaction, that inner solitude is something you have to learn. It is a good time. It is good to spend some time physically alone each day as well. You might think that you can be joyful only when you are with other people, talking and laughing and playing around. But joy and happiness can be very great in solitude as well. So deep that you are more able to share. If you have deep joy and happiness developed in solitude, then you have a lot to give. Without the capacity for being alone, you become more and more depleted. And when you don't have enough nourishment for yourself, you don't have much to offer others. That's why learning to live in solitude is important. Self-contained,
Self-contained,
with no need for external reference points,
with no need for external reference points
to confirm oneself.
to confirm oneself. Next reading is from Thich Nhat Hanh's Silence, again, page 152, 153. Each day, devote some time to being physically alone, because that makes it easier to practice nourishing yourself and looking deeply. That doesn't mean it's... Wait, did we just read that? Okay, I was talking about the crowd. And, okay, not exactly, but similar. Sorry. I'll try again. Each day, devote some time to being physically alone, because that makes it easier to practice nourishing yourself and looking deeply. That doesn't mean it's impossible to practice being alone and looking deeply when you're with a crowd of people. It is possible. Even if you're sitting in a marketplace, you can be alone and not be carried away by the crowd. You're still yourself, still the master of yourself. Likewise, you can still be yourself even if you're in a lively group discussion, and even if there is a strong collective emotion, you can continue to dwell safely and solidly in your island. These are the two dimensions of solitude, and they are both important. The first is to be physically alone. The second is to be able to be yourself and stay centered even in the midst of a group. It is because you are comfortable in solitude that you can be in communion with the world. I feel connected to you because I am fully myself. It's simple. To really relate to the world, you have to first go back and relate to yourself. Self-contained,
Self-contained,
with no need for external reference points,
with no need for external reference points,
to confirm oneself.
to confirm oneself.
I appreciate how Zeus mentioned earlier the tree with buds, the tree with old leaves. And I think it's interesting to think in terms of contradictions and juxtapositions. I appreciate so much, Shannon, in terms of we need to do a better job with women's voices here at Sacred Ground and the ancestral voices of women at Sacred Ground. It's both and so one of the key tenets of Sacred Ground Community Church in Sangha is interbeing, our interdependence. And yet this is all about solitude and being self-contained. And so again, I invite myself, I invite all of us to just wrestle with those seeming contradictions. And maybe it's strongest during our teen years when you feel that the pull of this crowd or that crowd, but I don't think it ever disappears. And when we were doing our joys and concerns, I'll just say I have gratitude for all the women and men who have encouraged me, or encouraged us, Ollie and I, to be self-contained, to say, hey, why don't you do some sort of like spiritual thing out in the park, regardless of whether it's 30 degrees outside or whether it's raining or snowing. And stuff happens when you do that. Good stuff, often. And last week our theme was silence, and I think that stillness is, I'm so glad you did the silence earlier, Ollie, for us, because that's sometimes when we can hear that voice that can help us in terms of that self-containment. So just grateful for all that. And we're about to have our solitude, our solo time, where we go on a saunter here. Before that, I'm going to share one last reading. I know a lot of readings today. And this is Tolstoy, and most of us know the name Tolstoy. Oh yeah, Russian novelist, War and Peace, Anna Karenina. Near the end of his life, he focused on his understanding of spirituality and Christianity in particular. He saw Jesus as an exemplar of peace and nonviolence. Gandhi, a young Gandhi in South Africa, was in correspondence with Tolstoy and was very influenced by him. And when Gandhi started a community in South Africa, he actually called it Tolstoy Farm. And so later we think of civil rights leaders as being influenced by Gandhi and kind of taking this into Christianity from Gandhi, which they did. At the same time, Gandhi was influenced by Christianity and was looking at what Tolstoy was saying about Jesus beforehand. So it's all lovely. And then I'm also thinking, then there's a whole other layer of what were mostly going unreported in terms of all the women who were behind the scenes, as well as all the unknown other men, right? Because we think of, oh, Martin Luther King and civil rights, and there's a gazillion people, right? And so, again, just recognizing that interbeing and also that self-containment. So I think this is actually what inspired me to think about this week's theme. Tolstoy, late in life, actually for several decades, he's writing little phrases and sayings and collecting little nuggets from other teachers, and he puts them together in a daily meditation guide. Puts 2 or 3 of these together in the early 1900s, and this is a recent translation from Russian into English of a collection, kind of gleanings from those different collections. This is called Leo Tolstoy's Thoughtful Wisdom for Everyday Life, 365 Days of Love, Kindness, Healing, Faith, and Peace. And I'll share with you the readings from, a couple of the readings from page 74 and 72. Also, all that cross-pollination, just like we're such advocates of here at Sacred Ground in terms of other spiritual traditions cross with each other. Tolstoy says, and these excerpts are adapted, do the best you can and try not to think about the opinion of others. One who pays too much attention to what others say about them will never find peace. A clever person knows that all they need is within themselves. A foolish person wants others to treat them nicely and grows angry if others do not give them what they want. A clever person knows that all they need is within themselves. Therefore, a clever person has no one to be angry with. Self-contained,
Self-contained,
with no need for external reference points,
with no need for external reference points,
to confirm oneself.
to confirm oneself. So, right now it's time for our solo saunter, solo walk, where you can go anywhere in the park here. Those of you online, we'll move our chairs and leave the screen facing here and be able to hear the beautiful birds. You are welcome to go out in your yard or look out a window, whatever you'd like to do. And just so you know, this is a play space back here, so you're allowed to go off trail anywhere around here. There's a prairie over here that's all mowed down. Now we've got an open sky over here, bathrooms over there. And during this time, it's a time to be with nature, listening to where you might feel like you're called to walk to. You might want to walk, you might want to sit. Do what the Spirit is calling you to do at this time.
And there's extra blankets over there. Feel free to take one or two if you want to sit in the grass or if you want to sit somewhere. You're welcome to borrow those if you're here.
So I don't know. It's late. Like
Yeah,
it's
we got a little bit of a
11:30.
late start too.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what do you
So,
think?
I don't know. 15 minutes is short, but maybe we should do that today. I don't know.
I think 11:50.
11:50. Yeah, we go with 11:50. Okay, so we'll be back here at 11:50. Enjoy your solo saunter. Yes. That's what we've learned doing this many times is as long as we're properly dressed, we have the proper things, and it's great.
Yeah.
But if not, oh.
Do you want to explain this time, Ollie?
Sure, I can. A second. So now we have a time for sharing. Yes, yes. Thank you. Now we have a time for sharing. People can share about their saunter, share about the readings, anything that's going on in their lives, and there's no need to share. You don't have to share. We ask that everybody think about time that they're sharing, but also in between each sharing, we ask for like a short time of silence in between to honor each sharing. During these sharings, it's not a back and forth, we're all just listening. So listening is the most important part because there'll be more listening than sharing. People can share online, and I'm going to read some. Actually, I'm going to read some people shared before. I'm going to read some of those. Anything else I'm forgetting, Mr. Mallon?
If you'd like to share, just bow in. If you remember to say your name, that's great. And when you're finished sharing, bow out. And as Ollie said, you might raise a question, but you won't get any answer. And you shouldn't get an answer from somebody else when their sharing time comes either. It's kind of honoring the self-contained nature of that sharing. And we will not presume, if you do wish to share, we will not presume that you wish to be online. So if you bow in and share, people will be able to hear you but not see you unless you've let us know unless we know ahead of time. Or knew ahead of time.
That you're okay with
That you wanted to be online, or that you were okay with being online. So with that, we'll have a moment of silence, and as people feel they're welcome to bow in. And again, as Ollie said, that silence in between always adds richness.
I kind of contemplated this notion of self-containment because it seems contradictory, but it's not. In the sense that I went basically off trail and just kind of let nature show me where to go. I'm got enough orienteering that I didn't get lost. So. But I'm looking for ways to be shown directly to who I am, and trusting that almost childlike part of myself to just respond. And to me, that's what self-containment is. It's a kind of ultimate self-acceptance. I'm not looking for approval. I'm not looking for direction. I'm not looking to be right. I'm not looking to have some goal in my mind. I'm just allowing all these things to come together here, present in me. And in that sense, the part that self-contained is not just this person, but this whole life and this whole universe and everything around it. Going back to the readings, it was talking about how I'm talking about being in a crowd and still being, centered, and being in the forest and still being centered. It's this whole notion that you can kind of embrace who you are in the midst of everything, right? And you don't need to find some kind of validation outside of that presence in the midst of everything. So to me, that's what self-containment meant. And when I went down into the forest, that's kind of how it worked. I was going along logs. There was a log that fell across the stream, and it had a branch right above it that had provided a perfect handrail, so you could just kind of go off. And then there was another one that was along the stream, and then when you went to the end of it, there's these two trees there that when you went through, it felt like a door, right? So to me, that was a liturgy right there. And then I go through the trail and get up onto the trail, and ironically, that's when I feel like under the conceit of being self-contained, because everyone's jogging along the trail and it's all laid out, there's this notion of needing to have someone make the trail for you, then to follow the trail. And so it seems like there's such a contrast between that and just bushwhacking through. So I really enjoyed the contradiction, right? The way in which in Western culture we talk about being self-contained, our preferences, meaning people that make us desperate, lonely, and alienated, that kind of containment, versus spiritual containment, where literally everything is open and you find your place in it, right? So to me, I just want to challenge us to and to invite us to let those two notions of containment kind of rub up against each other, and to trust this deeper part in yourself that knows that it has its place and has a peace by having its place in all of us. So that's what struck me.
I'm going to read a couple of these online ones. That's okay. I'm going to read them here. You could hear me better back here. We had a nice comment. One, John said, Michael sounds louder when Ollie is standing behind the camera because the sound is reflected off her to the mic as well as a direct sound. That's from John. And so I appreciate it. So I'm going to stand here if anybody's sharing. So maybe I reflect. That was great. So thank you, John.
Literally a sounding board.
I'm literally a sounding board. That's great. So Martha says, I love how this group opens my heart. Christiana says, prayers for your sweet kitty. Probably it's either Marianne or Ralph says, we are like the trees. Even though we stand alone and are self-contained, there's a whole network of roots and connections beneath the surface that connect us and sustain us.
I'm Michael, and we have Sacred Ground has a men's mindfulness group which meets on Thursdays at 4. That's only in person. Zeus and I are actually both part of that. If you're a guy and in Columbus, you can email me for more info on that. But last week, we oftentimes do Sacred Saunter with that too, and this past week we were talking about right speech and compassionate listening. And so when I went out on my walk, I was really focused on listening. This is just around where we live, and I've lived there for 20 years. And my experience of my little neighborhood was completely different from that listening. And then today, I walked, sort of again trying to let Spirit guide me, and ended up off the trail back here and found this log, and it was kind of a lot of honeysuckle. There's a problem of too much honeysuckle in this area, and kind of make my way through a bunch of the honeysuckle and sit down on this log, and I'm looking, and it's kind of interesting. It's different. I mean, I'm off the trail, and that. But I thought, well, I brought a blanket with me. I'm going to lay down on the log, and I lie down and I look up, and I realize it's kind of like the all the people touching the elephant in different places. Like, oh, this is a completely different world when I'm looking up versus when I'm looking straight. And as I was looking up, these little birds, and unfortunately I don't know what kind of birds they are, but they're kind of flying and chasing each other, and I assume it's mating stuff because it's March in Ohio. Whatever it was, they're doing their thing, and I can hear them a little bit. And then a couple minutes later, they fly off. And for the rest of the time, there's no birds. And I was thinking like, oh, well, if you come here from, 11:35 to 11:40 or whatever time it is, it's like, oh, it's Birdville. But if you're here from 11:42 to 11:47, there's no birds. And just like that, the changeful nature of everything, and the idea that, like, I guess my ways of thinking started to come into my head, and I was kind of like getting caught then in my thinking, and realizing like how freaking linear my thinking is, and how maybe most human thinking most of the time is very like in lines, and those lines might be called thinking about Christianity, or thoughts about Buddhism, or conservative ideologies, or liberal ideologies, and it's all about keeping these nice straight lines of here's what we think, here's what this group thinks, and that's why I brought this, because it's like I couldn't find a single straight line out there. And here was this nice little bendy branch, and it's like, this is our nature. And I guess the last word I'll say on this is like, some people are insistent upon God because, we've got to talk about God, that's in their line. And other people are insistent we can't talk about God because that's not in their line. And right now I feel like talking about God, so I will, and I'll say, like, for me, and again, I'm not dictating to you or you or you or you, but like for me, dang, every time I get out here, I mean, I do, in my heart of hearts, I believe God is everywhere, but talk about accessibility. This is, this outside stuff is, that's real accessible for me to find God, so. Yeah.
Bowing it. First thing, I love what was shared online about the tree being solitary, but also its root system, because that is exactly what I was musing on when I was walking around to the trees here, and then looking down at the root system. And yeah, that was potent for me, and obviously for someone else. The other thing I noticed, I went off trail and don't see any leaves really, but there was a buckeye tree that had little baby leaves. I mean, they're just babies like this now, but right over there were all the baby leaves. So that was a delight to see. this week, Self-Contained. It just feels really important to me this week. So a number of things. One, with our kitty going and being self-contained, like I said before, that this is an indoor-outdoor cat. That's what we've chosen for our family and what works well for our house and the people in it, and being self-contained about that and knowing there are dangers. And so that there's one thing. Like two things have kind of been on that. So that certainly has been heavy on my heart and just in my gut this week. And then the other one is, like when I talked about it last week when we weren't online, about humility. So self-containment, humility. Our son had a video that went viral, his first one, and he was talking about homeschool, and there were just a lot of comments about it and people wanting to ask. It was about homeschooling. Michael and I did the homeschooling, wanting us to talk about homeschooling. So this week, our son came and interviewed Michael and I, which I wanted to do. I want to talk about homeschooling. Part of, what I was talking about last week is I need to humble myself because it's very imperfect, right? And so I kind of went into the interview with that humbling, but that was good, but I didn't go into the interview, I don't think, with a self-contained. So there was this, because after the interview, I was kind of, I said, I feel it in my gut. One, there was the gut thing with the cat, but there was also this gut thing that I was trying to, with talking about closing the Department of Education, I was like, well, it's a tricky time to talk about homeschooling, and so wanted to make sure people knew, we're not anti-school, we were teachers, our oldest daughter went to school, and this wasn't why we were homeschooling. So I tried to explain that, and also being a stay-at-home mom, and there's some judgment on that, and I'm very solid that I've been a stay-at-home or homemaker, that's been my identity for 30 years, but trying to also explain that, how to maintain self-containment. So it just hit me this morning again and again, the readings, where's my self-containment? Just very strongly. So I will continue to use on that. Where's my self-containment? Where's my humility? So I appreciate this topic and these readings. Appreciate being with all of you and being outside here in the park. Again, I say this every time. I was nervous. I got 3 layers on the bottom and 6 layers on the top, and I was just like, oh, it's gonna be cold. All week I'm looking at the darn weather, and it's gonna be cold. It's fantastic. It is lovely. Yes, my hands are a little cold, but it's lovely. So glad to be here with you all. Holly bowing out.
You're gonna pass. So there's no more. I think we're passing the rest, so
Okay.
we can finish up.
Again, we give thanks for all these sharings. Give thanks for you folks being with us online and here. And we'll have, I think Ollie will have a few closing words, and then I'll have a closing prayer for us.
Our announcements are that the next time we have an event would be this Wednesday at 4. We'll have our Mindful Bible Study on YouTube, and just on YouTube. So if you want to join us, and then those are always up to see at other times. If Wednesday at 4 doesn't work for you.
Let me just mention here, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Thank you. Some people make little comments sometimes. because sometimes people aren't even watching live and they check it out later, and it is a little encouraging. So because it's like I am trying to be self-contained, but not but and I want to be self-contained, and I also I am with others, and so the idea that it holds value for some other people is also encouraging. So we do appreciate the comments on all of our stuff, and I would say especially on that Wednesday Bible study, the fresh green blessings. Thank you.
So that is this week, Wednesday, March 26th at 4, focusing on Psalm 127 and Mark chapter 5. And as Michael mentioned, the Mindfulness Mansford meets on Thursday, in person only at 4. You can contact Michael for more details. We'll be meeting again here next Sunday, not online, but people that are in Columbus, we'll be meeting here at Sharon Woods again. Our complete winter schedule is on our website, theholynow.org. Find out more information about us. If you're not on our email list, we'd like to be. There's a contact button on that website. You can contact us and get our email list. There's a donate section there. If you want to support what we're doing financially, you can. And then we'll be online again in 2 weeks at the Folk House.
For those whom prayer is appropriate, invite you in this space of prayer. For those who just presence or mindfulness is more appropriate, invite you into that space. And with that, we give thanks. We give thanks for the varieties of people who tune in and who show up. We give thanks for the ancestors, countless women, countless men without whom we could not be here today. We give thanks for a fierce interdependence that is always here. We are empty of separateness. And with that lovely juxtaposition, that non-linear thought, we give thanks for solitude as taught by so many teachers, including Ty, Tolstoy, and so many others. And help us to recognize that we're just simply trying. Many of us, certainly myself, I do feel sometimes the weight of the thoughts of others, the opinions of others, and we need not beat ourselves up for any of that. We keep on. And we lean into the thought that together, in our solitude together, in our inner being oneness, and in our distinctiveness, that we can add to what's worthy, hopeful, and healing, and compassionate, and kind for all. because
I know we
don't.
We didn't know how to stop it earlier.
Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing folks again.
Hmm.